tell you a little bit about both of the organizations for those of you who don't know. 36 Degrees North is Tulsa's base camp for entrepreneurs. And our entire mission is to help entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs themselves thrive in our city. We do this by providing inspiring workspace, a tight-knit community, and resources to get entrepreneurs to the next step in their journey. And Greenwood Cultural Center it serves as a marker for the Tulsa community, chronicling where we've been, where we are, and where we are going through historical offerings, events, and youth programming. Its mission is promoting, preserving, and celebrating African-American culture and heritage. So if you are here and watching online, you may, I don't know what you're seeing online, but if you're here, you notice that I'm on the stage by myself, correct? Now, while I am a Gemini, I'm not going to be having a conversation with myself. I do have a guest today. And I am very excited to just invite Vanessa, Komara, to have this discussion with me. If you missed last week, we laid the groundwork for the rest of the series and touched on the backstory of how the series came to be. Our goal at 36 Degrees North is to make 36 look like Tulsa. So whenever we talk about entrepreneurship, as we mentioned last week, talking about Black Wall Street is critical, right? Because not only is Black Wall Street, was it big for Black people, it was big for Tulsa. It was internationally known. So that's why we partnered with the Greenwood Cultural Center today. Again, we want to continue to highlight those stories. And I'm proud to have joining us virtually, Vanessa Komara, and she will tell us a little bit more about herself and about one of the female founders. So when we talk about Black Wall Street, a lot of times, I don't know about you, but we hear about male stories, right? We hear about the men, Black Wall Street, but we don't often hear about the women, and Vanessa is gonna help us and talk about some of the female founders of Black Wall Street. So Vanessa, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can.
Excellent.
Well, welcome. We want you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your story. We want to hear more about you.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of the speaker series. I'm honored to share this space with you and all of the other distinguished entrepreneurs that's going to be speaking in the following weeks. So my name is Vanessa Komara, and I am actually originally from Indianapolis, Indiana. I got my education at Marian University. I have a BA in business management and a BA in French. I was able to get my MBA from the School Business School of Lausanne. I graduated with magna cum laude. And I have worked internationally for the past 25 years in marketing and sales in approximately 15 different countries around the world. So international business has always been my thing, if you will. I'm fluent in French. I've been speaking French since I was 14, and we won't say how old I am now. I speak Swiss German, Spanish, and Flemish. And I started Komara Marketing Group in 2010. And I did that explicitly so that I could share my expertise in marketing, digital marketing, all the wonderful things that I've done in corporate America with nonprofit organizations in my community, because I really saw a need there. I'm also an adjunct professor at Oklahoma State University. I've been teaching there since 2008. I teach international business and international marketing. And the things that keep me sane is the love of singing. I've been singing gospel all of my life. I sing jazz and classical music as well. I was able to sing in the Indianapolis Opera Company and the Tulsa Opera Company for about 8 years. So that's a little bit about me. As far as my journey is concerned, as far as my business, I started Komara Marketing Group in 2010. And it's one of those things where, you know, I felt it was time to start my business, but I'm not gonna lie, I was afraid. No one in my family, there's no one in my family that's a business owner. You know, I grew up with, I think like most of us, with the mentality that you You go to school, you get an education, and you go work for corporate America, and you retire and get your golden watch, and that was it. So when it came to starting my business, I didn't have anyone necessarily in my family to look to, but one thing I did have from my family was just sheer support. Like whatever you can do, you want to do, you can do it. So in 2010, I ventured out. Like I said, I had all of this experience in corporate America, but I didn't have any experience for myself. And I am so forever thankful for Dr. Lana Turner Addison, because she was my first client within Teddy. And I will never forget that. She, I guess, saw that potential and she hired my little company. It was just me and a friend of mine, Monique Richard. And what Komara Marketing Group does is we work exclusively with nonprofit organizations, and we're a one-stop shop. We do everything from marketing strategy, website design and creation, social media marketing, PR and communications, graphic design. And now, because of COVID, we are also able to do virtual and hybrid events, and we've really been able to up our game in that area. And so that's a little bit about Komara Marketing Group. But I would say that founding this company, like I said, working with nonprofit organizations, I kind of see that almost as my ministry, because I find that with nonprofit organizations, they need as much help, if not more, as these large organizations. But they either don't have the funding, or they don't have the bandwidth, or they don't have the talent in-house to do it. And so that was something that I really wanted to do, to be able to help these organizations, because these organizations have a direct effect on our community. This is a little bit with Komara Marketing Group at work. We started with the one company, but one that back in 2010, we've been very blessed to work with a lot of the nonprofits in town. I just finished creating the website for Greenwood Cultural Center. I just finished doing the hybrid event for John Hope Franklin Center for Reconciliation. And it's not just me, it's a team. Been blessed to have wonderful people that work with me. I think one of the most important things that I learned from Carrie Everett, who was the CEO at Hilti, who I have been blessed to work for. And one of the things that he told me is that the sign of a good leader is to find people that are excellent in their areas of expertise and let them do what they do best. And I've been blessed to hire some people that are really, really good at what they do. And together as a team, we're able to put our skill sets together and work, with our nonprofits and help them achieve the goals that they want to achieve. The entrepreneur that I chose to talk about was Lula Williams. And she was really inspiring for me. Like Tara said earlier, you hear about, the entrepreneurs that started, Black Wall Street, and they're all men, but you don't hear a lot about the women. And I was really inspired by Lula Williams because she was a true entrepreneur. She started her business with her husband. They had purchased a building on the corner of Archer and Greenwood. It was a 3-story building. On the first floor, she opened the Williams Confectionery, and then they sold candy, ice cream. They had a soda fountain, and that was just the place for everyone to go. And then on the second floor, she had her apartment. And then on the third floor, they rented that out. And so to see a woman that is in business, we're talking 1920, 1921, and you just didn't see women, Black or white, that was in business, let alone being successful in business. And she was really successful. And then she opened up, after her Williams Confectionery shop, she opened up the theaters in the Greenwood district. First, there was the Empress Theater that she opened in 1913, and that was located at 17 West 3rd Street. And that also was very successful. And then she opened up the Dreamland Theater, Williams Dreamland Theater, in 1914, which was at 127 North Greenwood. Now, this building right here, it held up to, I believe, 750 people. And, to look at when we're looking at theater, movies was just in its infancy stage to begin with. So she was right on the cutting edge, right there, just as movies was coming about. The theater also served as a place for the community leaders to come together. It served as a place for vaudeville acts, and everything within the community was held there. So that was the place to be. And so I just really admire someone like her to step out and start her business, be successful when that was just not something that was you heard of in the 20s, you know. You hear about that a lot today, but certainly not then. So she was definitely someone for me to look up to. So
Well, thank you for sharing that, because I will be honest and let everybody in the room know that I had always heard the stories of the men and never even thought about, you know, the women. From what I was told earlier this week in doing research for the series, the Dreamland Theater was actually Lula's idea, and it was hers
yes,
and her husband, and you may have been the person to tell me that.
yes.
So, you
And
know,
she
that was
owned it
just me honest.
outright. Yeah, she owned it outright. Outright. She owned the whole thing.
In 19, because you said 1913, and there was more than one theater. You just mentioned there was 3 theaters,
Yes,
right?
she had Empress Theater, she had the Williams Dreamland Theater, and she actually had 2 other theaters outside of Tulsa. And that was kind of what they fell back on when these theaters were burnt down. They fell back on the theaters that was outside of Tulsa.
So that is a great piece of information. Even people here in the room are, you know,
Hmm.
I'm curious to what, because I see some parallels between her story and your story. I'm curious what made you want to choose her though, because there are other women, right?
Yes.
On Black Wall Street. So what was it about Lula that made you want to choose to highlight her story?
Well, you know, I just think I the parallels would be I know when I started in marketing, started in e-business back in, I call it the pioneer days, and I didn't know anything about e-business. And I was a voracious reader. If it had something to do with e-business or digital marketing, I was buying it, I was reading it. And I just see Lula that way as well. You have to remember, Lula was a school teacher. That's how she started. She wasn't this, you know, entrepreneur. She was a school teacher. So to leave that behind and then start up, you know, the confectionery shop and then a theater. Where do you get that knowledge? It's not that like you can go to Amazon.com and buy the latest book on how to open up a theater, right? Or go to the library and find something about that. So she had to find her way. And so that reminded me of when I first started in the business. Just I had the luxury of, you know, maybe talking to other people or going and doing research, whether it be online or purchasing books. But that's why I really admired her to be a school teacher and then to make that transition from teaching into doing what she was doing is quite admirable. So
It
that's why
is.
I chose her.
Well, I'm glad that you chose her. I'm looking out at the audience and I see school teachers. I see Black women entrepreneurs in this room. And I know that one statistic, I don't have numbers, but Black females are among the fastest growing demographic group to become entrepreneurs. So
Yes.
as a Black woman, you spoke earlier, you said, you know, I wanted to start this business, but I was afraid. I can personally testify to the same thing, right? Um,
Yes.
so what about to speak to the other Black women in the room who, again, some of them are already, I see businesswomen here in the room, but there might be Black women watching or in the room who want to start a business. What would you say to them to encourage them to
Well,
go ahead and start? Because there may be that fear that they might be grappling with.
yes. I would say 2 things. For one, everything that you need to do to succeed, God has already put that inside of you. Okay. So he orders our steps. And if that is the path that you're to take, everything that you need to do to succeed, it is in you. Secondly, you can't do anything. No man is an island. Okay, so find people that you can work with that can mentor you. Don't ever be afraid to ask questions. And also don't ever be afraid to fail. What is the saying that, you can fall down 100 times as long as you get up 101. And some of the biggest life lessons that I have learned in business has really come from some of the biggest colossal mistakes that I have made. Don't ever be afraid to make a mistake. And don't ever let that paralyze you. Get around people that are doing what you want to do and mentor them. We have a saying in French that says, qui s'assemble se ressemble, which means basically birds of a feather flock together. If you want to do something, if you want to be something, then you find people that are doing what you're doing. What do we say? That iron sharpens iron, right? So get around people that are doing what you want to do and have them mentor you. So that's what I would say. That's what I did anyway. And I still have those people that mentor me.
Thank you so much for bringing that out, because I think that speaks to part of what we do here. A big part of what we do as far as helping and providing a community. It is important. Like, even when I was looking to, picture this, it's 2020. I had this business that I started, and I really didn't start it. Like, I got my LLC, but I still was kind of at the house just scared, like, oh gosh, now I have to get clients, right? But that's gonna expose me, I'm gonna feel vulnerable, that whole thing. And I thought, okay, I need a place. I had a home office, but I needed a place that I could work outside of my house. And I thought, where can I go that I'll be supported by people who are like-minded, not necessarily doing the exact same thing that I'm doing, but other entrepreneurial-minded people, other people who I can be encouraged just by seeing them, just by saying, oh, okay, I know that they have their own business, so just to kind of help you. Whenever you're an entrepreneur, it can be very lonely, it can be isolating. So that's why I chose 36 Degrees North, because I've been here for some programming before, and the space is amazing. The energy, the diversity, the people, there's just different people doing different things, and there may be some meetings that you have in a space like this that you might not have at home, that you can't have at home in your home office, right? You might have a chance meeting that brings a partner, or, you might have coffee with somebody who could be the next co-founder of your business. So that actually is very important. What you're saying is very important. I just wanted to say, as far as community, if there's an entrepreneur watching, if there's an entrepreneur in this room, it can be lonely and it is isolating, but find a community, and 36 Degrees North is here to be that community for you. So I just wanted to make sure I said that. I want to know, when did you first learn about the massacre? I mentioned last week, whenever I was telling my story, that I grew up, both of my parents are from Tulsa. So we grew up learning, they taught us about it. I actually have spoken with a new friend that is in the room who is a descendant of the massacre. Her family was actually there. I believe it was her grandmother was there. How did you first learn about the massacre?
I first learned about it. Right. So obviously I did not hear about it in Indiana. I knew nothing about it. I didn't even know that Oklahoma had this large Native American population either. But it wasn't until I was working with Jean Neal at John Hope Franklin Center for Reconciliation that I was made aware of about the massacre, and then started to study it and learn about it. And I was just appalled. And then in working with her, with that organization, and then just getting information and reading it, I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that something like that happened on our soil, that our government would do that to its own people. But I didn't find out about it until, I would say, about maybe 10 years ago.
Awesome. So why do you feel it's important for Black entrepreneurs to know about Black Wall Street? And this is originally 2 questions, but I just want to ask you, why do you think it's important for people? Because I think a lot of times we talk about Black Wall Street, and it's not just important for Black people to know about Black Wall Street. But why do you feel it's important for all people to know about Black Wall Street? And what do you feel they can learn from it?
I feel it's incredibly important that we know about our history, because if we don't, we're doomed to repeat it. And so we have to know, number one, about what happened, but also to understand, appreciate, and feel proud of the resilience of our people. You know, as Maya Angelou said, when you go into the Greenwood Rising, they have uh, her poem, Still I Rise. And you know, you might do whatever you try to do, but we rise like the phoenix out of the ashes. We will rise. And so I think, if nothing else, it is important for us to know what has happened, but to know that we were able to face it, and to know that we were able to overcome it, and that we were able to be successful nonetheless. And that's really important.
Yeah, and I think that it's important for us when you speak of resilience, that it is a collective resilience, right? We have done this and we are
Yeah.
rising together. It takes all of us.
Yeah.
So when did you first, I'm curious, when did you feel, we're gonna kind of get on something else, but when did you first feel the call to be an entrepreneur? Like, I remember being a little girl and I had a bunch of ideas of, oh, I'm gonna create this business. Like you talked about Lula having a business with 3 different floors. I had this schematic that I drew up when I was young, and I was giving my mom a job. Okay, mom, you're gonna be the teacher, and my sister was gonna be the architect, and you're gonna run the office. But I didn't think of that as entrepreneurship. As an adult, I look back and I thought, oh wow, I must have an entrepreneurial thoughts as a kid. When did you first feel the call to entrepreneurship, or remember wanting to be an entrepreneur?
I would say that the call did come to me rather late. I would say when I was in Europe, I was able to do quite a few things, and I kept thinking, well, I could do that on my own. Why am I not doing this? You know, so when I came back to the United States, I had wanted to do it for 3 years. Okay, 3 years it took me to get up enough nerve to do this. And then a lot of it was, I'm just going to be honest, it was self doubt. You know, you look at organizations and I'm like, oh, Lord, they're in the shiny building on the 10th floor and they've got 20 employees, and there's no way that I can compete against that. And but I would say that I came to it rather late, but it took me 3 years to get up enough nerve to do it. And then I realized, wait a minute, I'm doing everything that they're doing. So who says that I can't do that? I am doing it, you know? So let's just do it for myself, you know? And so after 3 years of going through this, I finally decided to start my business. So kind of like you had your LLC and then you decided to do it. I didn't even have my LLC. I kept thinking about it. But I guess it was after I came back from Europe that I thought, there's a need. And if there's a need, I'm the one that can step into that role and provide that need. So
Yeah. So let me not make it sound like I was so advantageous to get my LLC, okay? I had a conversation with my best friend and she said, listen, we have talked about this so much. What are you gonna do? Like, are you gonna start a business? Or are you just gonna talk about starting a business, right?
yeah.
And I'm just like, wow, did she just say that? And she said, what do you need from me? Do you need money? I'll do it. So she actually gave me the money for the LLC, which gave me the courage to start it, right? So it does, speaking again to community, and that fear that you had, I can relate to that. And then going back to, you said it took you 3 years. I have a mentor, who's like a brother to me. He's a colleague of mine. And he told me once, when I worked in financial services, he's like, Tara, everything we did at first, we did horribly. Like whenever we're babies, we're trying to hold our head up, we're bobbleheads, right? You try to walk, you fall. Everything you do, initially, you're gonna be bad at it. But that's how you learn. So, and
Exactly.
then I want to give a shameless plug because his name is Milford Carter and his wife, Kenya Carter, has a boutique called K Nicole Boutique. The t-shirt that I have on today is her boutique. She's there on Archer and Maine. And I just want to give a shameless plug to that. She actually created these t-shirts. So if you haven't
Very
been to K Nicole Boutique, please go over and check them out. They are a very wonderful family, but I'm grateful for Milford telling me that you're gonna be bad. Like, just go ahead and try to walk and fall and get it over with it. And
into it.
let's
Exactly.
go. Right.
Exactly.
So let's talk about, there's a conversation, right? We just celebrated or commemorated the centennial, right, of the massacre. We have a lot of conversations. We've got a lot of organizations here wanting to help build businesses. in the community. And there has been conversation and speculation that, of course, we couldn't physically rebuild, but the spirit can remain. Let's talk about the spirit of Black Wall Street. If I were to say to you, what does it mean if I say, what does the spirit of Black Wall Street mean to you? Like, what is that?
I think the spirit of Black Wall Street is blazing new trails, even if no one is doing, stepping out and doing it, overcoming whatever obstacles that you might overcome. You go ahead and do it. The spirit of Black Wall Street for me is also community, because you definitely saw that, a sense of community, working together hand in hand. And then also that even in spite of obstacles, trials, tribulations, if you will, that never giving up and overcoming those and succeeding. That to me is the spirit of Black Wall Street.
So just a question for you. Do you think that we can rebuild?
I think that we can. You know, I don't know how long it would take, but I think that if we work together as a community, and like you said, it's not just Black people. You know, it takes us collectively to work together, and that's some of the things that I encouraged when I was. We had the memorial service for the survivors and the descendants a couple of Fridays ago, and it was so nice to see that it was a very diverse audience. You know, we have to work together. And I think it is possible. You know, I don't see why it isn't. You know, is it going to happen in the next year, 2 years? I don't know. But if we keep working at it, if we keep it alive, what I don't want to see is, okay, the centennial is over and then we forget about it. We don't have that luxury. We have to keep this alive. We have to keep working on it and bringing it in front of the community. And not necessarily just Tulsa, but you know, the communities around us as well. And that's really, really important.
So I want to touch on, and we may have kind of touched on this already, but what challenges do you think that, what are the some of the, first of all, what are some of the challenges you've experienced? You talked about that, but what challenges do you think that the community has and is experiencing that's keeping them from rebuilding? And just what challenges in entrepreneurship in general? Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, it does. So let's start with the first part of the question. The challenges that the community has. I I would like to see our political leaders kind of walk the talk. Okay. Um, we need that support, not only from our community, but we need it from our political leaders as well. And I think that's probably some of the challenges that we're facing from our our mayor to our governor. You know, we, we can raise awareness, but we also need that support legislatively as well. And I think that's some of the challenges that we are facing. Um, Challenges that I faced, a lot of the challenges I faced was financial, coming up with the money that I needed to either buy some of the things that I needed, whether it be software or hardware or office space or whatever. The challenges of just building up that clientele and having people have confidence in. Like I said, I have been doing this for a very long time in 15 different countries. However, when I looked at Komara Marketing Group, there was nothing that I could say that I did as my own company. So just finding people to have that trust in you and hire you as, you know, as their marketer. So that was and just overcoming my own self-doubt and my own fear, and just, you know, getting enough courage to say, it's okay. It might take 3 people might shut the door in my face, but the fourth person is going to have me walk through. And then, so those were challenges that I faced in the beginning. Now, some things get easier, some things are still difficult. But like you said, when you have other entrepreneurs around you that you can bounce things off of, that can give you that support and that encouragement, that's what it takes.
So I want to take this time to open up the floor for questions. We do have people here, and I don't know if there are questions online, but let's get some questions from the audience. Don't be afraid. Question right here.
Can you tell us about your story of getting to Tulsa? What brought you to Tulsa? How did you get here? Why did you stay? Why is it important for you to be a Black entrepreneur in Tulsa?
Did you hear that?
That's a very good question. So I came to Tulsa because my late husband was going to graduate school at the University of Tulsa. So we got married, and I have to admit, didn't even know where Tulsa was. So that's what brought me to Tulsa. I I stayed in Tulsa. I was here the first part, then I lived abroad for about 8 years. So I left. The company that I am with was based in Tulsa. So that's what brought me back. What keeps me in Tulsa is I love the people here. I love the spirit of the people here. There is much work to be done, and God has given me the tools and the ability to step in the gap and provide that tool and those services to the people here. And so that's why this is my home base.
It's a great question. What other questions do we have? Oh, and you can also, if you're watching virtually, you can put your questions in the chat, and then we'll have Jamie read them for you. Yes, I have a question.
Okay, yeah. Hi, Vanessa. Thanks so much for being with us this evening. I have a question for you. Since you're a marketing expert, what kind of advertising and marketing efforts do Black-owned businesses and women-owned businesses need access to in order to kind of become a place on the map here in Tulsa?
That's really good. Well, I am a fan of digital marketing, okay, because you can do a lot with very little. And, every marketer is going to say, where's who's your customer base and where are they? So there's a lot of things that we can do within Tulsa digitally, as far as working with uh, certain magazines that have online presence as well. I'm a big proponent for search engine marketing. Those are some things that you can do. And also just getting out there, things like that we're doing today, getting out there, networking with other people. Those are things that you can do so that people can know who you are. I think a lot of companies feel that you have to spend a lot of money to get your name out there and for people to know who you are. You just have to be where the people are, so that they'll see you. So I'm a big proponent for digital marketing because you don't have to have a large budget to do that.
That's a great question.
And social media is definitely one of those things that you can use as well. We have been able to monetize social media. You just have to use it wisely. That doesn't mean that you're going to be on every single platform. You're going to be on the platform where your customers are. And that way you can also target them. So if you're wanting to target a specific group of people, you can very easily target it on your social media platforms.
What other questions do we have? Got a question in the back.
Ms. Komara, I know I sort of know the answer, but I'd like to open the conversation for you to talk about your excellence that you provide as an entrepreneur, to say, how does that defined excellence for your business and your service, how do you maintain that with the multiple entrepreneur efforts you have? And then how does that become a way of promoting it further.
So that was a multiple part question. So how do I define excellence?
Yes, and I'm thinking more about the excellence that you brand for yourself, so that it becomes your marketing to others.
Right. So for me, I think the most important thing is having an open and honest conversation with your customer. Okay. One of the things that I learned first and foremost, I don't give a customer what I want them to have. I truly listen to what their needs are and understand what is their business, how they're doing business, and what is it that it is that they're trying to achieve, and having that conversation with them. Now, in marketing, it is dynamic, right? Whenever we're dealing with human beings, it changes. And so that also means that you have to stay ahead of the curve. Just because I went to school, got my MBA, doesn't mean that my education is over. I study daily. I read daily. I go to seminars. I make sure that when it comes to whatever it is, that I know it. And if I don't know it, you better believe I'm going to know it. And so it's just having an open conversation with my client, understanding what they need and making sure that I can meet their needs for them. And one of the things that I learned from one of the CEOs is if you don't know it, don't be afraid. I'm not sure, but I promise you, I will know it. So.
Here's another question right here, and then we've got one.
Thank you for your being here today and sharing your story. Is your work on Lula Williams, is that it, or do you plan to continue working on the stories of other historical Black women entrepreneurs?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Is your work on Lula Williams, like what you did, is that it, or do you plan on doing other work on historical Black women entrepreneurs?
I am. You've just kind of opened up the door for me. So I have been listening to each one of the speakers in your series. I also had the opportunity to put a lot of the information on the Greenwood Cultural Center's website. So I took a lot of time to learn about that, a lot of the players, if you will, during that time. But I find it very interesting. And yes, so I do want to continue to learn about these women because it is very inspirational.
I learned today, while we're getting to the next question, that there is an exhibit at the gallery about the Black women or the women of Black Wall Street. And I did not know that. So I'll be going there to visit that exhibit so that I can see those women. There's Lula was in there, there's Mabel Little, and there's other women that I hadn't heard of. So if you haven't been by there to see that exhibit, that's a good place to go. We had another question here.
Hello, I'm Kathy Jordan, and just from one entrepreneur to another, could you share some tips? How did you position yourself, like amongst your friends or relatives, against giving everything away for free? When you're establishing a business, it's like I heard you say, you invest in yourself. You go to seminars and workshops and mentors or coaches and read books. That costs. But a lot of times when we launch our business, everybody wants for free. So could you offer some tips? How did you overcome those hurdles with your family and friends or those close to you to let them know that you're in business now?
What, you don't want to give the family discount? What's up? No family and friends discount? No, it's true. It's true. Well, I'm gonna be honest. In the very beginning, when I didn't have any customers, my price was low. And I'm going to tell you, I think that we as women, we have a tendency to undervalue ourselves. And as a result, we don't charge what we're worth. Okay. We need to stop this. okay? We need to understand that we are excellent at what we do, and we deserve to ask for the same price as anybody else does. So I did have a lower price in the beginning, just so I can get some businesses under my belt. I did go and investigate to see what the price was out in the marketplace. Now, my business model is to work exclusively with nonprofits. So I purposefully have a price that's lower than maybe some of the other people out there, because I feel that people that are in the nonprofit industry, you have to have a lower price. However, if people don't pay for something, they don't value what you give them, and they don't value you. And that comes with your family as well. Try and get your hair done. I bet they're going to charge you for something. So, yeah, so you have to say, this is my business. And, I might do it once, for a lower price. But as you establish yourself, there's the adage that time is money. And if I'm doing something for you, that means I'm not doing something for my client. And if I'm not paying you, then how am I going to pay my people that are working with me? So you just have to have them understand to see you. The problem is they see you as your cousin, as your sister, as your my baby. They have to start seeing you as the entrepreneur that you are. So
I wanna so you're saying that, okay, because can everybody in this room get a discount before your prices go up, or? But there was another question, right?
I'm still laughing about the family thing. We have a lot of family, probably about 300 in Tulsa. My 87-year-old mother, she said, if I wasn't paying you, I would be paying somebody else. And so nobody else in the family is thinking they don't pay. But what I was going to ask you about is, what can you say to people that are afraid to be the face of the business? We have a heating and air conditioning business, and we made a point of purposely, we're local in Montauk, and I'm almost that age, we're at that age too, to be visible. But we also know other people have been very shy, people of color, to be the face of their local business. Because they're concerned that would affect their business. Do you have any advice, or how do you feel about that? Or
I have worked with a couple of people, and I have a client actually in Atlanta, Georgia, an African American gentleman, and people do business with people that they know, they like, and they trust. Okay, so part of what we have to do in marketing is to build that story and build that relationship, so you can build that relationship between you and your client. And let's face it, people are going to come online and they're going to read about you before they ever pick up the phone to call you, quite honestly. They want to see what you're about. Well, I was really kind of taken aback to learn that he didn't want me to put his face on the website. He did not want people to see that he was a Black male. So then I said, well, what are you going to do when you show up at the door? I mean, how are you going to do that? My thing is this: you be excellent in what you do. If the appointment is at 10 o'clock, you show up at 9:50. You do what you say. My mother always said, do what you say and say what you're going to do. And I think that, and then you start to earn a reputation. Are there going to be some people that doesn't want to work with you? Then that's okay. Then they weren't meant to be your customer anyway. But when you start working and you provide excellent work, sometimes you might have to work with people that right? Just so you can build that clientele. But as you build, you build that reputation, then people are going to work with you because you know what? You provide the services that you said you were going to provide. You provide them at a good, honest price. You're dependable. You show up when you say you're going to show up. And if there's a problem and I call you, I know you're going to be there. And quite honestly, they don't care what color you are. So
So I have a question, and then I'm gonna get to your question. Have you ever had to fire a client? I mean, we talk about, first of all, knowing your value. And sometimes when you first start and you feel like I should just take whoever I can get. I remember the first time I fired a client when I worked in financial services, and it was so liberating. Because first I thought, well, I need this client. Then I thought, no, I don't need the stress. Have you ever had to fire a client? And what would you say to someone who maybe is experiencing that to help them kind of walk through that? I mean, going back to
yes,
our conversation about value.
yes. So yes, I have had to fire a client, and it's frightening, quite honestly. It's frightening because you feel like, oh, I need this money. Or then you might think, well, what if they say something bad about me? Or, in the community, or they tell someone, oh, don't work with her because of whatever. Let me tell you, if they're that bad of a client, there's nothing that you can do. There's no amount of right that you're going to do that they're not going to trash you anyway. Okay. And like I said about building a good reputation, people that truly know your work, it will speak for itself. But when it comes to, again, trying to have a good open dialogue with a client, lay down the groundwork in the beginning. This is my statement of work. This is what I'm saying I'm going to do. These are the hours that I'm going to do. This is the price that I'm going to charge. I have often found that it's the customers that don't want to pay anything that require the most handholding. So that's going to be different with each person in that room. You have to determine right up front, what will I do? What won't I do? And don't be afraid to fire a client, because let me tell you, why work for them? And then there's resentment there and there's stress there. Life is too short and too precious for that to happen. And I promise you, if you fire that customer, God will bless you with two more in its place. So.
Thank you. Here.
My name is Tiara Crawford, and thank you for making this time to be able to share your ministry with us and just impart this knowledge. My statement would be, and then I'll follow up with a question. It's always been a long-term goal of mine to have a facility that maybe the community participated in, where there was a certain play off of the idea of a business school, where you actually learned like you were in school to operate your business, and every single year they would roll over for new students to come in and occupy the space, and these students would have to have their own companies.
I like
And
that.
they had people who actually taught them and graded them on how their company was actually doing, and they would be able to stay another year if they had a certain amount of sales, and you had people coming in, giving instruction and treat it like you're in school. You get a grade. How did your numbers do this month? And people in the community could come to this facility and support, these entrepreneurs. And so for me, if you had your way, you had the state behind you, the city behind you, you had the funding and the time, how would you go about maybe correcting or helping, entrepreneurs in Tulsa rebuild where we were with Greenwood? And how would you do it if you
I
had
like that.
everything, all the resources?
Well, it sounds like you've attended my international business class, quite honestly. I'm one of the people that I believe that you learn by doing. And so in my class, I feel it's international business. So what better way to learn about international business than to start a business internationally? It's a semester-long project. They have to start a business from ground zero. When I was at Hilti, I started businesses for them, and I take them along the path. We call it gateways. And then at the end of the semester, I bring in judges. I promise you, I did this before Shark Tank was ever on television, and they would judge the groups, and the group that they felt was most viable would be the group that would win. So obviously, your idea is something that I love and I could truly get behind. sometimes we can't wait on government. We have to do it ourselves. Whether that be, working with other people in the community to raise the funds, maybe starting it off as a nonprofit and working with someone to help write grants for you, raise money, do some fundraising and getting the funds together. You would be surprised what you can do, especially as a nonprofit with a little small budget to no money at all. You would be surprised how many people, professionals, would volunteer their time to help you do this. One of the things that I had said when I was talking to Tara, at this stage in my life, it is my responsibility to give back to my community. That's what I do with Komara Marketing Group, and that is what I teach. So something that you're wanting to do, first of all, you have to come to the table ready, put together the business plan. What is the curriculum going to be? How is that going to look like? Who are the students that you want to do? Put it together. And then once you're ready to do it, you can find a facility. Sometimes you don't even have to have your own facility. You can have a 36 degrees north. You could have, I've had a lot of clients where maybe a church will will let them use the facility. It's something that you want to do. If it's something that you want to do, it's definitely viable. A lot of us consultants will sit down and consult with you free of charge. If that's something that you're wanting to do, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about doing it. I think that when we look at our children, it might be a cliche, but that is our future. And if we give them those tools, it reminds me of when I was in junior achievement, actually. And we started a little business and we made our little product and we had to sell shares in it. That was my first taste of what it's like to own a business. So your idea that you have, I absolutely love it. And I feel that it's something that you definitely can do. You might start off with a few students, network with you said, Tara, there's a lot of educators in that room. Network with your educators. Maybe this is something that they do after school or something like that, but it's definitely something that I think it's a great idea.
I think that you were reading my mind when you started talking about children and how they're our future, because I was going to take it there and I was going to ask you, do you think that we are preparing our children to be the entrepreneurs of tomorrow?
I think we could do better, Tara. I think we could do better. Whether it be, I know that there are programs that are out there. I don't know if we're reaching all the children that we're reaching. I know that like Coach Reed, for example, is doing an amazing job with the children on not only on the north side, but in Tulsa. We need more people like him, more programs like that. We're scratching the surface. Like I said, there's so much work that still needs to be done. But I think also if we work together as a group, we've got an organization here, organization there, but if we come together collectively, I think that we could do a lot more as well.
I agree. I wanted to take it to children because we have and he's not a kid anymore. When I met him, he seems like he was so small and he's grown so fast, but we do have an entrepreneur here in our room, in our midst, who is youth, who's not an adult. I've asked about the education because a lot of times I feel like as adults, we're starting businesses and we're trying to educate ourselves, but what would happen if we were to start that education as children? So we've got Onifade's Cookie Company here in the room, and they brought cookies to us last week. They were amazing. So we're so grateful to have you guys back here with us. I just wanted to speak to that as far as education. I know for me, I am the child of 2 employees, but so now I'm with my daughter who's 5. I ask her, and I tell my coworkers this all the time, like she has Barbies and she'll say, hey, I'm doing their hair. And I'm like, okay, but what if you own the salon?
Yes.
There you go.
What if you have buildings and you can put other people's businesses in your building, and this is 5 years old. So I love to see the next generation. I love children. I love educating them. So I'm so grateful that Onifade is here. I'm grateful for his mother, Shay, for starting him in this. They both have their own business and they have great ideas. We've had conversations and he has an idea that's similar to, not exactly, but similar to Tierra. So yeah, it's very important that we get our children involved. So Onifade comes whenever he's here. He is the cookie king. He does have cookies over here. So whenever we get ready to leave, please take some of his cookies and his business cards and support their business. Also wanted to ask, I'm gonna ask if there's more questions, but this is the second week. We have 2 more weeks of Black Gold. Are you guys enjoying this so far? It's so important for us as an organization and for me personally to make sure that we highlight the stories of those that are in our great city doing great things. So we appreciate you for being here and for telling your story and for sharing this time with us. Does anybody else have any more questions? Mark, I'm counting the 8 in my head. Vanessa, do you have anything that you would like to say, any last words? And if you have a question while I'm talking, please raise your hand. Anything that you want to leave with us, any gems that you can drop us, whether they be about Black Wall Street, entrepreneurship, education. We have another question. So do you want to answer that before we get the question, or would you like the question first?
Okay, let's go ahead and ask the question.
Okay.
The person.
I'm sorry, I'm back again. This is Tiara. Can you speak on your thoughts about age when it comes to, like we have this young man that's here, and for myself, I'm approaching 40, and I've been doing, business since I was a teen. And when you have the generations that come up before us and after us, and you can think, okay, I'm at a place where I've put in all this work, and I can look back and see, okay, I've done some things that I didn't know I could do, and I've hit some milestones, but I'm not where I want to be. And do I have the time? What's the trajectory here? Is it realistic? When it comes to what we as women, especially, I can only speak on women, but mothers, when we have schedules and diapers and babies and other outside jobs, and it becomes impractical sometimes, especially when you hit those mood swings or depression, or why am I still in this bed? Or how come I haven't called this list of people back? And you watch your money just go out the door like it has shoes and it walks away. And you could have done something about it. When we get into those emotional droughts where we just don't know as women, how to pick back up from that. What advice, and have you come across those moments where you're just almost, in a way, almost self-sabotaging by not doing? How do you deal with that?
That's a very good question. And I think we've all been there where we sometimes feel exhausted, maybe overwhelmed. And sometimes I just feel like you just hit a wall, right? I think the thing to do is step back. One thing that really works for me is I write everything down. I was always told, and I follow this today, that if you fail to plan, then plan to fail. And I want to tell you, you are never too old. I met a gentleman, so I'm on business here I am on business here in New Orleans. And I met a gentleman who is 74 years old, who is going back to school to get his doctorate's degree. I remember the first semester, yes. I remember the first time I taught at OSU Tulsa. Her name is Sammy, and I still remember her name. She was getting her bachelor's degree, and she was 68 years old.
Wow.
Now, some people feel, oh, well, I'm ready for retirement. I can't do it. As long as God has given you breath and you wake up in the morning, it is never too late. So you write down what it is that you want to do, okay? Start with the things that are that's easy, what we call low-hanging fruits, right? The things that are easy to do. And then you take it step by step. Again, There's some things that I'm not good at, even in my own business. That's why I have other people that do it, okay, because they're better at it than I am. All right, I'm just going to keep it 100, but know, you know what it is that you want to do. Don't feel that, okay, oh, I'm 40 and it's too late. And I know the difficulty of having children. I never had children, but having children, having a husband, all of these things that surround us. But we as women have a tendency to take care of everybody else, and we forget about ourselves. I challenge you to put yourself first. It's okay. The world will not fall apart. I'm not saying that you don't take care of your children, but I don't care if it's no more than a half an hour a day. If that's all you have, 1/2 an hour every day is going to be for me and working on the goals that I have for myself. Because one of these days, that child is going to be grown and out of the house. Okay. And if you just work little by little toward that goal, right? The biggest journey, the longest journey starts with the first step. You can do it. I have faith that you can do it. Don't put unrealistic time limits on yourself either. And so I would just say, even if it's no more than 30 minutes or an hour every day dedicated to yourself and what your goal is, you can do it. And find people that can help, whether it be maybe babysitting your child, or, whatever, a sister or a girlfriend that can come over and help. What I said earlier on, we are not an island. No man is an island. No man stands alone. We need each other. I could not get where I am without people pouring into me, helping me. Don't ever be afraid. Sometimes, I don't know if for me, it was pride. Oh, well, I'm not going to, they might think I'm stupid, or they might think I'm weak. Step back. Don't be afraid to ask for that help. Don't be afraid to ask for that support. Take a little bit of time every day. We have the expression, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you achieve that goal? 30 minutes a day, an hour a day. And you'll look up in a year and you'll be that much closer to the goal that you set for yourself.
That was a wonderful question and answer. Thank you for that. Yes. Keep it coming up. So I wanted to speak to that as well. I mentioned earlier that Black women are the fastest growing demographic in entrepreneurship. When I learned that statistic, I was at Economic Empowerment Day here recently, actually last week. I also learned that the vast majority of those businesses are sole proprietorship. So what does that mean? As Black women, we have a bad habit of doing it all ourselves, right? As women, period. I want to do it all myself. So one thing that I would just add that I'm actually learning right now, because you get that overwhelmed, like you said, Tiara, and you're feeling like, okay, I don't even really want to get out of bed right now, but I do have client work I need to do. Hire somebody, like Vanessa was saying. It doesn't have to be, so what I am currently working through is that this is still my company if I hire somebody else to do the work. I don't want to have to do all of the work myself. Now, this may not be applicable in your situation, but I wanted to share that though that demographic is growing in entrepreneurship, that sole proprietorship should be a start, not the goal to me. I want to create jobs for other people. I want to help communities. I want to help other families. So, yes, ma'am.
I want to ask that, being this mother and how fast our company has grown, it's hectic. I have 5 jobs being this mother outside. So, breathe, take a moment. We have family days on the weekends every 2 weeks. Like, you have to take time. It's a must, because you will drown yourself out. I've been sick and had to take a week and a half break, not as I wanted to, but my body made it. So just to keep yourself out of that space, don't overthink it. Don't fight yourself. Take a moment, breathe, come back to it. If it's not making sense, take a moment, come back to it. Try it again. You'll get it.
Exactly.
Just know the best is you. You are the best. And you'll get it. Don't.
And have girlfriends like Shay that will call you and make sure that
Yes.
you're resting, and then I check on her, I'm like, okay, what, today you're not doing any work, right? Y'all really going to rest, right?
Have a check-in, but yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Vanessa, again, we have thoroughly enjoyed this, and what last thoughts or anything do you want to leave with us about whatever it is that you feel may be helpful?
Well, this has been a wonderful hour. Thank you so much for allowing me to talk to you all, albeit virtually. I guess if there was anything that I would say, it would be, we have a lot of resources available to us. Use those resources. You have a lot of people around you that are willing and able to help. Use those resources. Don't ever lose sight of your goal, whatever it is. Don't get hung up on, the time limit or the time frame that it'll take to do it. Work towards that goal, whatever it is. And just overcome fear. Because, I was always told, fear is false evidence that appears real, is what that acronym stands for. Just work through it, So that's what I would leave as my parting
Thank
advice.
you so much. We really appreciate your time. Can we give Vanessa a hand? Anybody who is watching or who's in this room who maybe is not a member at 36 Degrees North, we will, again, this is a a part of a 4-part series. Next week, next Thursday, we'll be here again at 6:30. But next Wednesday is free co-working day. So if you know someone who is looking for a space, looking for a community, looking for a place to have events or where they can share their ideas,